My name is Afton Jagger and I am 32 years old. 6 days ago, I flew 3,000 miles to knock on a stranger's door in Ashland, Oregon. The woman who answered had my eyes, my jawline, my exact shade of dark brown hair. She looked at me for 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then she closed the door. No words, no hello, no sorry, just the click of a deadbolt sliding into place. I stood on that porch for 11 minutes. I counted everyone. Then the front door of the house next door swung open. An older woman stepped out, silver-haired, round glasses, hands trembling around a coffee mug. She looked at me the way you look at someone you have been expecting for a long time. "I know who you are," she whispered. "She's not who you think she is." What that neighbor told me in the next 2 hours turned 27 years of searching upside down. But what happened 3 days later at a graduation ceremony for a sister I did not know existed until that week? That is the part that still keeps me up at night. Welcome back to Calmvale Tales. This is a place where real family drama meets emotional justice. If you have ever stood at someone's door waiting for an answer that never came, this story is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. Now, let's get into it. I grew up in a split-level house in Broomall, Pennsylvania, 14 miles west of Philadelphia. Frank and Carol Jurger were my parents, not my biological parents, my real parents. The distinction matters to some people. It never mattered to me until I was 19. Carol was a second-grade teacher with a laugh that could fill a gymnasium. Frank drove a delivery truck for a medical supply company. They adopted me when I was 3 days old through a closed agency in Lancaster County. I never questioned it. They were my people. Carol got sick the summer before my sophomore year at Temple. Pancreatic cancer. The doctor said 12 to 18 months. She lasted 9 weeks. Before she died, she called me to her bedroom. The curtains were pulled. The room smelled like lavender oil and hospital-grade antiseptic. She pressed a small cedar box into my hands. The wood was smooth and dark, no bigger than a paperback novel. "When you are ready," she said, "open this." I opened it that night because I was 19 and I did not know what ready meant. Inside, a birth certificate with my mother's name blacked out in permanent marker, a silver locket oval tarnished on a thin chain, and a folded slip of paper yellow at the edges with 2 words written in a hand I did not recognize. "Forgive me." I closed the box. I put it on my dresser. I went to Carol's funeral 3 days later. I graduated from nursing school 4 years after that. I moved into my own apartment in Fairmont. I worked double shifts at a pediatric clinic. I dated a man named Elliot for 2 years. We broke up. That box sat on my dresser for 9 years before I opened it again. Let me take you back to 6 days ago, June 11th, a Tuesday. I stood on a porch in Ashland, Oregon, 342 miles from my apartment in Philadelphia. My right hand was in my jacket pocket, fingers wrapped around that tarnished silver locket. My left hand had just knocked on the door. 3 knocks, firm but not aggressive. The way you knock when you have practiced it in a motel mirror for 20 minutes. 14 seconds of silence, then footsteps, soft ones like someone walking on carpet and socks. The door opened. She was about 47. Dark brown hair past her shoulders, stir with a few threads of gray-green eyes. My green eyes. The same shallow crease between the brows that I see every morning in my bathroom mirror. She was wearing a linen blouse with small blue flowers and holding a dish towel in her left hand. She looked at me. Her face went white. Not pink, not flushed white. The way skin looks when blood leaves it all at once. I opened my mouth to speak. She closed the door. Not a slam, exactly. Something worse. A deliberate, measured push. The kind of closing that says, "This is not an accident. This is a choice." I heard the deadbolt turn, then the chain slide. I did not bang on the door. I did not call out. I did not cry. I stood on that porch with my hand still in my pocket, holding a locket from 1994. And I watched the minutes tick by on my phone. 11 minutes. 1 for every 2.5 years she had been gone from my life. I did the math while I stood there because that is the kind of thing I do when I am trying not to fall apart. I was turning to leave when I heard another door open. Not her door, the house next door, a smaller house, white with green shutters and a garden bed full of purple irises. The woman standing on that porch was in her mid-60s, silver hair pulled into a loose bun. Round glasses, a coffee mug in both hands, trembling slightly. She was staring at me the way people stare at news they have been dreading. "I know who you are," she said. Quiet, almost a whisper. I stopped mid-step. "She is not who you think she is." My throat closed. I could feel my pulse in my temples. "Excuse me. Come inside." She nodded toward her open door. "I will make tea. You are going to need it." Her name was Ruth Calloway, 64 years old, retired librarian from the Ashland branch of the Jackson County Library System. She had lived in that house for 26 years, 1 year longer than the woman next door. Ruth set a cup of chamomile in front of me. Her hands were still shaking. She sat down across the kitchen table and folded them together, pressing her thumbs against her knuckles. "How old are you?" she asked. 32. She closed her eyes, nodded slowly. "Then it is you." "Then what is me?" Ruth looked toward the wall that separated her kitchen from the house next door. The wall that separated her from a woman she had not spoken to in 12 years. "She told me once," Ruth said years ago during a bad night. "She said that life is dead. I killed it myself." Ruth opened her eyes. "I think you are the life she killed." Ruth told me she had been Diane's first friend in Ashland. 23 years ago, a woman in her early 20s moved into the house next door. No family, no furniture except what she brought in her car. She introduced herself as Diane Hargrove and said she had grown up in foster care. No parents, no siblings, no past. Ruth took her in the way small-town librarians take in strays. She brought casseroles. She helped Diane find a job at the local credit union. She introduced her to people at church. They were close for 11 years. Book club on Thursdays. Wine on the porch in summer. Normal, comfortable friendship. Then one night, 12 years ago, Diane showed up at Ruth's store at 11:30 at night, drunk, crying. She had just had a fight with her husband, Greg. "She sat right where you are sitting," Ruth said, touching the edge of the table, "and she told me she had a baby when she was 15 years old, a girl. Her mother took the baby from her, forced the adoption. She never saw the child again." Ruth asked what had happened to the baby. Diane's answer was for words. "I do not know." Then 5 more. "If I know, everything falls apart." After that night, Diane pulled away, stopped coming to book club, stopped answering Ruth's calls. 12 years of living next door to someone who would barely make eye contact. "I carried it," Ruth said. "For 12 years, I carried her secret. And then today, I looked out my window and saw you standing on her porch. And I knew, same eyes, same jaw, same way you tilt your head when you are thinking." Ruth sat down her mug. "That girl, she gave up. That is you." But Ruth was not finished. 7 years ago, she told me she was cleaning out a shared storage shed between the two properties. Old garden tools, broken flower pots, a box of Christmas lights neither of them had claimed. Underneath it all, pushed against the back wall, she found a cardboard box with Diane's name written on the side in faded marker. Inside, a Pennsylvania driver's license, a social security card, both in the name Diane Marie Kessler. An address in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and a legal name change document filed in Multnomah County, Oregon, 23 years earlier. The document showed that Diane Marie Kessler had legally become Diane Marie Harrov for months before she met Greg. Ruth looked at me across the table. "Hargrove is not even a married name. She invented it." I could feel my hands going numb. Kessler, the blacked out name on my birth certificate. The part I could never read. "Does Megan know?" I asked. Ruth blinked. "You know about Megan?" "DNA match. 18 months ago, half-sibling, 24.8% shared." Ruth shook her head slowly. "That girl has no idea she has a sister." Diane told her she grew up in foster care with no family. Told Greg the same thing. Built an entire life on top of a lie, and the lie is 23 years deep. I sat in that kitchen for another 40 minutes. Ruth gave me every detail she remembered. The yearbook photo she had found once in a junk drawer that Diane snatched away. The time Diane flinched at a news story about adoption reunions. "I did not come here to blow up anyone's life," I said when I finally stood up. Ruth touched my arm. "I know, but that life was already built on a fault line. You are just the earthquake." I checked into a motel on Sisu Boulevard. The mountain view in, $69 a night, thin walls, a window unit that rattled, and a parking lot view of the Cascade foothills. I sat on the edge of the bed with the cedar box on my lap. I had carried it in my backpack from Philadelphia, 3,000 meters in the overhead bin. I opened it and ran my thumb over the locket. Then I called Frank. My father, my real father, the one who taught me to ride a bike and drove me to nursing school orientation, picked up on the second ring. "What did you find, sweetheart?" I told him everything. The door, the 11 minutes, Ruth, the name Diane Kessler, the legal name change Megan. Frank was quiet for a long time. I could hear him breathing, steady and even. The way he breathes when he is thinking hard. "Your mom knew," he said. "Carol, she always knew this day would come. That is why she kept that box. She wanted you to have the choice." "What choice?" "The choice to look or not to look. She never wanted you to feel like you had to." I pressed the locket against my sternum. "I have a sister, Dad, 22 years old. She does not know I exist. Then she deserves to know. Diane does not want me here, Afton." He paused. "You are looking for truth, not revenge. Do not forget that." I stayed in Ashland, booked 3 more nights, not to confront Diane, not to force anything. I stayed because somewhere in that town, a 22-year-old woman named Megan Hargrove was living her life without knowing she had a sister. And I believed she had the right to decide for herself. Let me go back for years. After Carol died, I threw myself into work. Double shifts, overtime. Anything to fill the silence. But at 28, I hit a wall. I was treating kids at the pediatric clinic, watching them with their parents, answering their medical history questions, and I realized I could not answer a single one about myself. Family history of heart disease, unknown. Diabetes, unknown. Cancer. My adoptive mother died of it, but biologically I had nothing. I ordered a DNA kit online, spit in the tube on a Wednesday night, mailed it Thursday morning, then I waited. 6 months, a handful of distant cousin matches. 4th and 5th cousins scattered across the Midwest. Nobody close enough to mean anything. 1 year, still nothing meaningful. I started checking the app less every Monday and Friday, then just Fridays, then once a month. 2 years. I almost deleted the account. Then 18 months ago at 2:14 in the morning, my phone chimed on the nightstand. Possible half-sibling match. 24.8% shared DNA. I sat up so fast I knocked over a glass of water. The screen glowed in the dark. Username Megan H_203. No photo, no detailed bio, 1 line of text. College student, Oregon. I sent a message that night. Short, careful, measured. My name is Afton Jagger. I believe we may be biologically related. I would love to connect if you are open to it. No reply. 3 months later, I sent another. Still nothing. I did what any nurse with an internet connection would do. I traced the username to a public Facebook profile, Megan Hare of Ashland, Oregon. In the profile picture, a young woman with dark brown hair and green eyes smiled at the camera. She looked exactly like me. I did not want to ambush her. That was the line I kept drawing for myself. I had been ambushed by a closed door already. I was not going to do the same thing to a 22-year-old college senior who had no idea her life was about to shift. Southern Oregon University listed faculty and student email addresses in a public directory. I found Megan's in 30 seconds. I sat in my motel room for 2 hours composing an email that was 7 sentences long. My name is Afton Jagger. I am a nurse practitioner from Philadelphia. I recently took a DNA test and received a match suggesting we may be half-siblings. I am currently in Ashland. I am not here to cause harm or disruption. I understand this may be confusing or overwhelming. If you are willing, I would appreciate the chance to talk. I hit send at 9:17 in the morning. Then I went for a walk through Lithia Park and tried not to check my phone every 40 seconds. I failed. 36 hours later, just as I was beginning to accept that she had probably deleted it, my inbox pinged. How did you find me? Who are you? Short, suspicious, but not hostile. I sent back the DNA match screenshot, 24.8%. Half-sibling. The numbers do not lie. Her reply came 11 minutes later. 11 minutes. The universe has a cruel sense of symmetry. That is impossible. My mom does not have any other kids. I typed carefully. I think we should talk in person. I am in Ashland. I can meet wherever and whenever you are comfortable. A long pause. 3 dots appearing and disappearing on my screen. Coffee shop on Main Street tomorrow in the morning. She said yes. What she did not tell me was that she had already shown my email to her mother. I arrived 20 minutes early. The cafe was called the Beanery. Exposed brick walls, potted ferns. A chalkboard menu in someone's careful handwriting. I ordered a black coffee and sat in a corner booth facing the door. She walked in at 10:02, smaller than her Facebook photo suggested. 5'4", maybe 5'5", dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, a university hoodie to sizes too big, and eyes, those green eyes, red-rimmed and swollen. She had been crying. Recently, Megan sat down across from me. She sat her phone face down on the table. She looked at my face. I looked at hers. 30 seconds of silence that felt like 30 years. You look like me, she said. You look like her. Her jaw tightened. I talked to my mom last night. She said this is a scam. She said people fake DNA results to target families. I reached into my bag, the original DNA report, notarized, the birth certificate with the blacked out name. I laid them on the table between us next to her untouched latte. Megan picked up the birth certificate first, turned it over, studied the black marker covering the maternal name. Then she looked at the state listed at the top, Pennsylvania. Her voice was flat, controlled. My mom told me she grew up in Oregon her whole life. She did not. Megan set the certificate down. She pressed her palms flat against the table as if studying herself. I am not saying I believe you. I am saying I am going to look into this myself. That is all I am asking. She stood up. She took one more look at my face. I watched something crack behind her eyes. Not belief yet. Just the first fissure in a wall she did not know was there. That evening, my phone rang at 8:43. An Ashland area code. I picked up without thinking. I know what you are doing. A woman's voice. Low, controlled, trembling at the edges like a wire pulled too tight. Stop, Diane. I sat down on the motel bed. I just want to talk. There is nothing to talk about. You are not my daughter. The DNA says otherwise. Silence. 5 seconds. 10. I could hear her breathing. Shallow. Fast. The way patients breathe in there when they are trying not to panic. If you do not leave this town, I will call the police. You are harassing my family. I am not harassing anyone. I sent 3 letters through an intermediary service. I sat on your porch for 11 minutes and you did not even say hello. Another silence, longer this time. Then her voice changed, softer, almost a whisper. Like something she had been holding underwater for 27 years was finally breaking the surface. I already lost you once. I cannot lose everything else. The line went dead. I held the phone against my ear for another 30 seconds, listening to nothing. Then I set it on the nightstand next to the cedar box. She had said it. Lost you once, not. I do not know you, not. You have the wrong person. She said she lost me, which meant she knew exactly who I was the moment she opened that door. She recognized me, her own daughter, and she chose to close the door anyway. I turned off the lamp. The cedar box sat in the dark beside me. The locket inside it was 32 years old, the same age as me, and neither of us had ever been opened. The next morning, I sat at the motel desk and wrote a letter by hand. 1 page, blue ink on white paper. I told her about Carol, how she had been a second-grade teacher who made voices for every character during story time. How she kept a cedar box in her closet for 19 years, waiting until I was ready. How inside that box there was a slip of paper that said, "Forgive me," in handwriting that was not Carol's. I told her I was a nurse practitioner, that I treated children for a living, that I had been looking for answers for 4 years, not for revenge. I ended with one sentence. I do not need you to be my mother. I just need to know who I am. I drove to the house on Maple Lane, pulled into Ruth's driveway so I would not block Diane's. Walked to the porch. I knocked. This time she opened the door, but only a crack. The chain was still on. I could see one green eye and half her mouth through the gap. Her lips were chapped. I held the envelope out toward the opening. Please read this. She looked at the envelope. She did not take it. I set it on the doorstep. Read it when you are ready. I turned and walked back to my car. When I looked over my shoulder, she was standing behind the front window watching me through the curtain. She did not pick up the letter that morning. She did not pick it up that afternoon, but Ruth called me at 9:15 that night. I just saw her come out. Ruth said midnight. She took the envelope inside. Midnight. She waited until no one could see her. That told me everything about how deep the shame ran. Megan called me the next afternoon, day for an Ashland. I was eating a sandwich in the motel room when her name appeared on my screen. I did some digging, she said. No hello, no small talk. I searched my mom's maiden name on our birth certificates. It says Harov. But here is the thing. She had spent the night going through public records, county tax filings, property transfer documents, Oregon Department of Motor Vehicles databases accessible through the university library system. There is no record of a Diane Hargrove anywhere in Oregon before 2001. No driver's license, no tax return, no utility bill. It is like she did not exist before 23 years ago. I let her sit with that for a moment. Her real name is Diane Kessler. I said she is from Scranton, Pennsylvania. She legally changed her name before she met your father. The silence on the line was so long I checked to make sure the call had not dropped. Pennsylvania, Megan said. You said your birth certificate is from Pennsylvania. Yes. And the DNA says we are half siblings, 24.8%. That is not an error margin. I could hear her swallowing. I need to think about this. I need a day. Take as many days as you need. She hung up. I set the phone down and stared at the wall for a long time. I understood her hesitation. She was 22. She was about to graduate. Her world was small and safe and built on things her mother told her. I was the crack in the foundation. And nobody asks for cracks, but cracks do not come from outside. They come from what was already broken underneath. Night for an Ashland. The motel room was dark except for the bedside lamp, a 40W bulb that cast everything in amber. I opened the cedar box again, took out the silver locket. I had held it hundreds of times over the years, but always quickly, the way you handle something fragile that you are afraid to break. This time I sat with it. The chain was thin, tarnished, almost black in places. The oval pendant was no bigger than a quarter. The front was smooth. No design, no engraving. I turned it over. On the back, scratched into the silver in tiny letters that were barely visible without a light directly behind them, I found something I had never noticed before. An inscription DK to A. I am sorry, 1994. I held the locket under the lamp, tilted it until the letters caught the light. DK Diane Kessler. That was me. A for Afton. Or maybe just A for the baby they had not named yet. 1994, the year I was born. She had inscribed this locket and placed it around my neck before the adoption agency took me away. Before Carol and Frank brought me home. Before Diane ran away from Scranton and changed her name and built a life without me in it, she had not wanted to let go. But she did. And then she spent 27 years making sure no one would ever find out she had a daughter she left behind. I closed my fist around the locket. The metal was warm from my palm. She did not want to give me up. Someone made that choice for her when she was 15. But every year after that, every year she did not look for me. That was her choice. And I did not know which one hurt more. I sat in that motel room holding a locket from 1994. My birth mother had held it before me. She put it around my neck when I was hours old. And then she let them take me away. If you have ever found something that changed the way you understood your own life, tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. The next morning, I opened the Ancestry app and saw something that made me sit straight up in bed. Megan H_203 had replied to my original message, the one I had sent 18 months earlier that had gone unanswered. I searched for Diane Kessler from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I found a yearbook photo from 1993. Scranton Central High School, a girl with my face, 15 years old. My heart was pounding. I typed back, "What did you do?" 3 dots. Then I confronted my mom last night. She cried. She said her mother, someone named Lorraine, forced her. She said she was a child herself. She said she had no choice. I read those words 3 times. Lorraine, a name, a real name from a real past that Diane had buried for over 2 decades. Megan continued. She begged me not to talk to you again. She said, if I do, I am choosing a stranger over my own mother. I chose my next words carefully. What did you say? The reply came in under 10 seconds. I said, she is not a stranger. She is my sister. I put the phone down on the bed. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something I did not have a name for yet. Something between relief and grief. Megan believed me. She had done her own research. She had confronted Diane and she had chosen truth over comfort. But I also understood what was happening on the other side. Diane was spinning the narrative. She was not lying entirely. Lorraine had forced her and she was a child. That part was real. But she was using that truth like a shield, deflecting blame, positioning herself as the victim so Megan would stop digging. It was working. And it was not working that day 5. I was walking back to the motel from a gas station when my phone buzzed with a voicemail. From a 570 area code, Scranton, Pennsylvania. I pressed play. This is Lorraine Kessler. The voice was crisp, clipped. The kind of voice that had been giving orders for 68 years and expected them followed. I believe you have been bothering my daughter. I called back from the motel parking lot. She picked up on the first ring. I will make this simple, Lorraine said. You want answers. I have them, but they come with a condition. I am listening. $50,000 deposited into an account of your choosing. In exchange, you leave Ashland. No contact with Diane. No contact with Megan. You go back to Philadelphia and you forget this ever happened. I leaned against my car and watched a hummingbird hover over the motel's overgrown rose bush. You cannot buy silence, Mrs. Kessler. I can and I have. I did it once when you were born. I can do it again. The hummingbird darted away. What did you do to your own daughter? I asked. The line went dead. I stood in that parking lot for 5 minutes. The sun was going down behind the Siskiyou Mountains, painting the sky the color of a bruise. $50,000 to disappear. That was the price Lorraine put on 27 years of my life. Less than $2,000 a year, less than a car payment. But the part that landed hardest was not the money. It was I did it once when you were born. She was not just offering a bribe. She was telling me she had done this before. She had made a 15-year-old girl hand over her baby and she had paid whatever it cost to make sure no one ever found out. The next morning, someone knocked on my motel room door at 7:20. Hard knocks. Impatient. I checked the peephole. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, mid-40s, red in the face. He was wearing a flannel shirt and work boots and his hands were clenched at his sides. I opened the door. I do not know who you are, he said. But you need to leave my family alone. Greg Hargrove, Diane's husband, Megan's father. I am Afton, I said. I am your wife's daughter. His face contorted. My wife does not have another daughter. She grew up in foster care. She has no family. Ask her about Scranton, Pennsylvania. He blinked. Ask her about a woman named Lorraine Kessler. Who the hell is Lorraine Kessler? Her mother. Your mother-in-law. The woman who offered me $50,000 yesterday to disappear. Greg's mouth opened then closed. He looked like someone who had just stepped off solid ground and found nothing underneath. You are lying, he said. But his voice had lost its edge. I have the DNA results. I have her real name. I have a locket she put around my neck the day I was born, inscribed with her initials and the year 1994. He stepped back. One step, then another, his hands unclenched. If any of this is true, he said quietly, then my whole marriage is a lie. I did not say anything. There was nothing to say. He was right. He turned and walked to his truck, stopped, looked back at me. If I lose her, I lose everything I built. His voice cracked on the last word. Then he drove away. I closed the motel door and sat down on the bed. My hands were shaking and I could not make them stop. Megan called me that evening. Her voice was different, steadier, like she had made a decision and was no longer debating it. My graduation is in 4 days. Southern Oregon University, Saturday, June 15th, 10 in the morning. Congratulations, I said. I want you there. I closed my eyes. Megan, your mother will not want me there. I do not care what my mother wants. She has been lying to me my entire life. You are my sister and I want my sister at my graduation. Through the phone, I could hear wind. She was outside somewhere. Maybe the campus quad. Maybe the park where we had not yet walked together. My dad knows now. She said he is not speaking to Mom. He slept in the garage last night. I am sorry. Do not be sorry. None of this is your fault. She paused. Well, maybe the showing up at the door part was bold, but the lying part, that is on her. I almost smiled, almost. I do not want to make your graduation about me. I said it is not about you. It is about the truth. She needs to see her two daughters standing together. Both of the daughters she pretended did not exist in the same room. I called Frank that night, told him Megan had invited me to her graduation. Go, he said, but go for Megan, not against Diane. I know your mom would have liked her. Megan, she sounds like a kid who does not run from hard things. She gets that from someone. Maybe the same place I got it. Frank laughed. It was the first time I had heard him laugh in days. Go to the graduation, kiddo. Clap the loudest. I booked one more night at the Mountain View Inn. Megan did not tell me she had also invited Lorraine. Ruth called me the next morning at 6:45. She sounded tired, as if she had been up all night listening through the wall. There was screaming next door, she said. All night. Greg confronted her. What happened? Ruth told me what she had overheard. Greg had come home from my motel and gone straight to the bedroom. He asked one question. Is your real name Diane Kessler? Diane broke down. She told him about Scranton, about being 15, about Lorraine dragging her to the adoption agency, about running away at 18, living in shelters for 3 years, coming to Ashland and building a new person from scratch. She said her mother forced her. Ruth reported she said she was a child. She said she had no choice. Is that true? The first part, probably. She was 15. But the second part, the 23 years of lying, that part was all her. Greg had asked the obvious question. Why did you not tell me? Because I was ashamed. Because I thought you would leave. You should have told me, Greg said. We could have faced it together. I was protecting our family. You were protecting yourself. Ruth said Greg was sleeping in the garage again, but he had not left. He was still there in the same house, separated by a hallway and 23 years of deception. I sat in the motel and processed what I was feeling. There was sympathy for the 15-year-old girl whose mother took her baby. That part of Diane was real and it was tragic. But there was also anger at the 47-year-old woman who had 27 years to find me and chose not to. She had opportunities. DNA testing had been available for years. She chose silence every single time. Diane called me that afternoon. Her voice was different from the first call. No steel, no threats, just a ragged, wet whisper. I was a child, she said. 15 years old. My mother drove me to a clinic. She told them I was giving the baby up. I did not even get to sign the papers. She signed them for me. I said nothing. I let her talk. I held you for 45 minutes before they took you. They had to pull you out of my arms. I was screaming. My mother told me to stop making a scene. Then why did you close the door? A long shaky breath. Because seeing your face was like seeing the ghost of the girl I used to be. The girl I killed when I left Scranton. The girl who had a daughter and lost her and never fought to get her back. You could have opened it again. Silence. Then her voice shifted. The softness sharpened into something harder. Something calculated. If you come to Megan's graduation, you will ruin the most important day of her life. Is that what you want? Megan invited me. Megan is 22. She does not understand what she is doing. She understands that she has a sister. That is enough. I already lost you once. I cannot lose everything else. I let those words hang in the air. Then I said what I had been holding for 6 days. You did not lose me, Diane. You let me go. There is a difference. The line went quiet, not dead. I could still hear her breathing, but she did not speak again. After 30 seconds, I ended the call. I set the phone on the nightstand next to the cedar box next to the locket I had not taken off. Since the night I read the inscription. 2 days before graduation, I drove to Maple Lane one more time. I did not knock. I sat down on the top step of Diane's porch and looked out at the street. The neighborhood was quiet. A sprinkler ticked in someone's yard. A dog barked 2 blocks over. The irises in Ruth's garden were bending in the breeze. 8 minutes passed. Then the front door opened behind me. I did not turn around. I heard her step onto the porch. She stood there. I could feel her shadow on the back of my neck. What do you want from me? She asked. Nothing you are not willing to give. She sat down on the opposite end of the step, 3 feet between us. The closest we had been since the day I was born. I cannot be your mother. I do not know how. I looked at her. Green eyes, red-rimmed, no makeup. Up close, I could see the lines around her mouth that I would probably have in 15 years. I am not asking you to be my mother. Carol was my mother. She raised me. She loved me. She kept a cedar box in her closet for 19 years because she wanted me to have the choice to look for you. Diane flinched at Carol's name. I am asking you to stop lying. Her face hardened. The vulnerability from the phone call retreated behind something older, something she had built like a wall, 1 brick at a time over 23 years. You have no idea what I have been through. You are right because you never told me. I stood up. I brushed off the back of my jeans. I walked to my car without looking back. She did not call after me. 2 days until graduation and I still did not know what Lorraine was planning. The day before graduation, Megan and I met at Lithia Park. We walked along the creek, past the duck pond and the Japanese garden and a group of teenagers playing guitar on a blanket. Megan asked me about my childhood. I told her about Brummel, about Frank and his delivery truck, about Carol's voices during story time, about nursing school, about Elliot, about the pediatric clinic where I worked with kids who had runny noses and broken arms and parents who loved them fiercely. Were you happy? She asked. I was loved. That is different from happy sometimes, but mostly yes. I pulled the locket out from under my shirt. I want you to see this. She cradled it in her palm. I pointed to the inscription on the back. DK to A. I am sorry, 1994. She did love you, Megan said softly. At least then. At least then. Megan took out her phone and showed me photos. Megan at 7 missing to front teeth standing in front of a Christmas tree. Megan at 15 in a soccer uniform. Megan and Diane at a restaurant, both laughing. In every picture I could see the features we shared. The jawline, the eyes, the way we tilted our heads slightly to the left. She is not who I thought she was, Megan said. She was looking at the photo of Diane, not at me. No, I said she is not. But you are who I have been looking for, Megan said. I just did not know I was looking. We sat on a bench by the creek. The water moved fast over flat stones, catching sunlight. For the first time in 6 days, I felt something besides grief and anger. I felt found. Megan put her arm through mine. I am not mad at you for showing up. I am mad at her for making sure I never knew you existed. That evening, Ruth called again. Her voice was tighter than usual. A woman arrived at Diane's house about an hour ago, older. Drove a silver sedan with Pennsylvania plates, expensive coat. They have been arguing. Lorraine, what are they saying? I cannot hear everything. But the older woman keeps saying, you fix this or I will. And Diane is crying. Lorraine Kessler had flown 3,000 meters to do what she had always done, take control. I called Megan immediately. She answered on the first ring. I know, she said before I could speak. Mom told me. She said my grandmother is here to support her. Your grandmother offered me $50,000 to leave town. Dead silence. She what? 5 days ago. She called me and offered me $50,000 to disappear. No contact with Diane. No contact with you. Megan's breathing went shallow. I have never met this woman. My mom told me she was dead. She told me both her parents died before I was born. Lorraine is very much alive. She is at your mother's house right now. You are telling me that my grandmother, who my mother told me was dead, tried to pay you to vanish the same way she made my mother give you up 32 years ago? Yes, not this time. There was steel in her voice, the kind that comes from being 22 and discovering that the people who raised you built your world on sand. Graduation is tomorrow, Megan said. 10 in the morning. All 5 of us will be in the same place. Are you sure about this? I have never been more sure of anything. I am graduating. My sister is going to be there and everyone in my family is going to have to deal with that. I spent my last night at the Mountain View Inn, sitting on the bed with the cedar box open on the pillow beside me. I took the locket off its chain and held it in my palm. DK Toa 1994. Then I fastened it around my neck again, tucked it under my shirt, and felt the cool metal settle against my sternum. I called Frank. I am scared, I said. Of what? That tomorrow will not change anything. That I will sit in a crowd of strangers and watch my sister graduate. And Diane will look right through me like she did on the porch. Listen to me. Frank's voice was the same voice that had guided me through my first for insertion, my first patient code, my first heartbreak. Steady, warm, certain. It already has changed things. You found your sister. You found the truth. That is enough. But Diane is Diane's problem. You did not cross 3,000 miles for Diane. You crossed them for the truth. And you found it. I looked in the motel mirror. My face. Diane's face. But the expression, the way my eyes softened when I was tired, the way my mouth sat when I was determined. That was Carol. Carol taught me how to smile when it hurt. Carol taught me how to stand up without raising my voice. I texted Megan. Whatever happens tomorrow, I am glad I found you. She texted back in 12 seconds. Whatever happens tomorrow, I am not letting go. I turned off the light. The cedar box sat on the nightstand. The locket hung around my neck. Somewhere on the other side of town, Lorraine and Diane were in the same house. 2 women who had spent decades erasing me. And tomorrow they would both have to look at me. Saturday, June 15th, 10 in the morning, Southern Oregon University. The ceremony was outdoors on a wide lawn between 2 brick buildings, white folding chairs in neat rows, a podium draped in blue and gold. The Sisu Mountains rising behind it all. Green and ancient and completely indifferent to what was about to happen. I arrived 30 minutes early. I wore a navy dress I had packed from Philadelphia. The only nice thing in my suitcase, the locket hung visible against my collarbone. I was done hiding it. I sat in the back row, watched the families filter in, fathers with cameras, mothers in sundresses, little siblings fidgeting, everyone cheerful, sunscreen slathered, clutching programs. Then I saw them. Diane came in from the left wearing a floral dress and large sunglasses that covered half her face. Her eyes were swollen underneath. I knew because I had seen those eyes up close on the porch. Greg walked 2 steps behind her, jaw locked, hands in his pockets. And then Lorraine. She entered from the parking lot like someone who owned the venue. Gray blazer, pearl earrings, silver hair cut sharp above the collar. She walked with the kind of posture that said, I have never been wrong about anything. Her eyes scanned the crowd. They landed on me. Held, then moved on. My phone buzzed. A text from Megan. Row 12, seat 7. I saved it for you. I looked at the seating. Row 12. I counted forward. Row 12 was directly behind rows 10 and 11 where Diane and Greg were settling in. Megan wanted her mother to feel me sitting behind her for the entire ceremony. I walked forward, sat down. Diane turned around, saw me. Her face went white for the second time in a week. Lorraine glanced over, set her jaw, took Diane's hand. The ceremony had not even started. The dean gave a speech about new beginnings. A valedictorian talked about the courage to face the unknown. I almost laughed. Diane sat rigid in her chair 2 rows ahead of me. Every few minutes, she would turn her head a 1/4 inch to the right, as if she could feel me behind her. Lorraine sat beside her, whispering something I could not hear. Greg stared straight ahead, motionless. Around us, the world was normal. Families laughed, children squirmed, cameras clicked. A woman in the row to my left was already crying, and the ceremony was only 15 minutes old. Names began to be called alphabetical. The heads were early. Megan Elizabeth Hargrove. Megan stood from her seat on the field. She climbed the steps to the stage in a blue cap and gown. She shook the dean's hand. She took her diploma folder. Then she looked out at the crowd. She found Diane first, smiled briefly, politely. Then her eyes moved up and to the right. Found me. And she grinned wide and real and unguarded. The kind of smile that makes your own face move before you decide to. I stood up and clapped. Diane stood up and clapped. Greg stood up. Lorraine sat. Diane turned and saw me standing, applauding 3 feet behind her. The locket caught the sunlight. Diane stared at it. Her clapping slowed, then stopped. I kept clapping. For a sister I had known for 6 days. For a girl I had spent 4 years searching for without knowing it. For the one good thing that came out of 27 years of silence. That is my sister, I whispered. Not to anyone in particular, just to myself, just to make it real. Diane turned back around. She sat down before anyone else. After the ceremony, families scattered across the lawn, clusters of graduates posing for photos, tossing their caps, hugging their parents. Megan walked straight toward me. She threw her arms around me, diploma folder pressed awkwardly between us and held on. You came, she said into my shoulder. I came. Over Megan's shoulder, I saw Diane approaching fast. Her sunglasses were off. Her face was raw. Megan. Diane's voice cut through the noise. Come here. Megan pulled back but did not let go of my arm. No, Mom. Not until you tell the truth. Diane stopped 3 feet away. This is not the time. Then when is the time? Megan's voice was calm but firm. You had 27 years. People nearby were beginning to notice. A father with a camera lowered it. 2 graduates stopped mid-conversation and looked over. Lorraine materialized at Diane's side like a shadow taking form. She addressed Megan without looking at me. This is a family matter, not for strangers. I am not a stranger, Mrs. Kessler. My voice was level, quiet. I am your granddaughter. Lorraine's eyes snapped to mine. You are nothing to this family. Megan stepped forward. She is this family. Diane's composure cracked. Tears spilled. Everything I did was to protect you, Megan. To protect our life. I reached into my collar and pulled the silver locket out so it rested against my dress. I held it toward Diane. You put this around my neck the day I was born. You inscribed it DK Toa, 1994. You did not want to let me go. Diane stared at the locket, her hand lifted halfway, then dropped. But you did let go, I said. And then you spent 27 years pretending I never existed. My voice did not rise. My hands did not shake. I had spent 32 years learning how to stay calm in rooms full of crisis. And this was just one more. You did not lose me, Diane. You chose to forget me. Diane sank into a folding chair. Lorraine gripped her arm. Get up. Do not give her the satisfaction. Greg, who had been standing 5 feet away with his hands in his pockets, spoke for the first time. Lorraine, sit down. His voice was ice. Megan stepped to my side, took my hand. 2 sisters standing together on a university lawn in front of everyone. Lorraine did not sit down. She straightened her blazer and looked around at the families who were trying not to stare and failing. You want the truth? She said, fine. You want it in front of all these people. Fine. She turned to face me fully. Your mother was 15, a child. She could not raise a baby. I did what any mother would do. I found a family who could give you a life. You did what was convenient for you. I said, I saved this family from scandal. Greg stepped forward. You did not save anyone. You destroyed your own daughter to protect your reputation. Lorraine's mouth tightened. She looked at Greg as if she was seeing him for the first time. You do not understand. You were not there? I was not there because I was never told there was a there. Greg's voice was rising now. My wife lied to me for 23 years because you taught her that lying was the only way to survive. Lorraine turned to Diane, who was still seated, still crying, hands covering her face. Tell them I did the right thing. Tell them. Diane looked up. Mascara streaked, lips trembling. She looked at Lorraine. At the woman who had ruled her life for 47 years. And something shifted. A muscle in her jaw set. A breath steadied. You did not save me, Diane said. You erased me. Lorraine's face went blank. For one full second, the most controlled woman I had ever met had no expression at all. Then she picked up her purse. She straightened her pearl earrings. I am done here. And she walked toward the parking lot. Nobody followed her. I watched her cross the asphalt. Her steps were still measured. Her back was still straight. But she was walking alone. And she would drive back to Scranton alone. And she would sit in a house that used to hold a family she had dismantled with her own hands. Lorraine walked away. 27 years of control. And in the end, it took one sentence from her own daughter to break it. If someone in your family has ever tried to erase a truth that you deserve to know, subscribe and drop a comment. These stories need to be heard. The lawn cleared slowly. Families wandered toward the parking lot, toward restaurants, toward celebrations. Eventually, only 4 of us remained on the grass. Diane, Greg, Megan, and me. Diane lifted her head. She looked at me. Really looked. Not through a cracked door. Not from behind sunglasses. Not with the armor of 23 years of pretending. I held you for 45 minutes. She said they had to pull you out of my arms. I was screaming and my mother told me to stop making a scene. I know. You told Megan. I ran away from Scranton because I could not stand being in the house where they took you. Every room smelled like formula. Every closet had a box of baby clothes Lorraine had already thrown away. But you did not look for me. Herchin Quivered. No. Why? Because looking for you meant admitting I had a daughter I abandoned. And I could not live with that version of myself. So I became someone else. Someone who never had a baby at 15. Someone whose mother was dead. Someone with only one daughter. She pressed her fingers against her eyes. I am not asking you to forgive me. I do not deserve that. I am not offering forgiveness today, I said. But I am not offering hate either. You are not who I thought you were, Mom. Megan's voice quiet. Not cruel, just true. Diane winced. But she did not argue. She did not spin. She did not play the victim. For the first time in 27 years, she just sat with it. Greg stepped forward and put his hand on Diane's shoulder. Not warmth, not anger, just steadiness. The kind of touch that says, I am still here. But we have a long way to go. The four of us stood on that lawn for another 3 minutes without speaking. Then Megan took my arm and we walked away together. We walked across the campus in our own silence. Megan still in her cap and gown. Me in my navy dress with a silver locket on my chest. Behind us, Diane and Greg sat on folding chairs on an empty lawn. To people beginning the long and uncertain work of figuring out what was left. What now? Megan asked. Now we get to know each other slowly. No pressure. Will you come back to visit? As often as you will have me. And Mom. I looked at the mountains behind the campus. The snow was gone from the peaks. Summer was settling in. That is her choice, not mine. We found a bench under an old oak tree at the edge of the parking lot. Megan set her diploma on her lap. I took off the locket and opened it empty. It had always been empty. No photo inside, just the inscription on the back in a hollow space where something should have been. I think I know what to put in it now, I said. I pulled out my phone. Come here. We leaned together. I held the phone at arm's length and took a photo. Two women with the same jawline and the same green eyes squinting into the June sun, smiling. I will get it printed small enough to fit. Megan laughed. It was a good laugh, surprised and real, like finding something you did not know you had lost. 2 weeks later, I was back in Philadelphia, standing at the nursing station at the pediatric clinic, filling out charts for a 7-year-old with an ear infection. Megan FaceTimed me every Wednesday at 8 in the evening. We talked about small things, mostly her job applications, my patients, a documentary she watched about octopuses, the kind of conversations that build something sturdy without rushing it. She was planning a trip to Philadelphia in October. She wanted to see the Liberty Bell and eat a real cheesesteak and meet Frank. Frank had already bought a new welcome mat for the front door. Diane had not called me, not once. But Megan reported pieces. Greg and Diane had started marriage counseling. The counselor told Greg it would take months, maybe years. Greg said he was willing to try. Diane had spoken to Lorraine once by phone to tell her not to contact Megan or me again. According to Megan, it was the first time in Diane's life that she had told her mother number 27 years late, but she did it. Ruth sent me an email short in the way that retired librarians write emails. Proper punctuation, no emojis. The porch next door looks different now. She left the front door unlocked for the first time since I have lived here. That might not mean anything, but it might. Frank mailed me a photograph he had found in a shoebox in the attic. Carol, 28 years old, holding a baby in a yellow blanket. Me, 3 days old. Frank had written on the back in pencil. First day home. I put that photo on my nightstand next to the cedar box next to a printed selfie of Megan and me under an oak tree in Ashland, Oregon. To faces that looked alike, to lives that almost never intersected. The locket had a photo in it now. Megan grinning into the camera, squinting against the sun. It fit perfectly. I spent 27 years looking for a mother who did not want to be found. I flew 3,000 meters to knock on a door that closed in my face. I stood on a porch for 11 minutes waiting for someone who was never going to come out. But I found a sister who had been waiting for me without knowing it. And I learned that family is not just who gives you life, it is who shows up when the door finally opens. That is my story. 27 years, one closed door, one whispering neighbor, and a sister I almost never met. If this story reminded you that the truth is always worth finding, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next.